I have this incredible, meaningful honor to present our next award to an individual who has been quietly transforming our business for decades. He is someone who not only talks the talk, but walks the walk. Michael Goldstone has always been the kind of transformative figure who leads by his own example. Go ahead, you can bring that. There it is. Goldie, as he's formally known, is the founder of Mom+Pop. And I love that name, and not just because he put a woman first. In fact, he's built a label that is made up of 62% women and a repertoire of artists that is 50% women-led. That's actually a really big deal. He has always fought for diversity. From his earliest days working at Chrysalis Records, supporting great female artists like Debbie Harry and Pat Benatar, through his brilliant A&R signings, Goldie has nurtured so many great artist careers, including Pearl Jam, Regina Spektor, Rage Against the Machine, Courtney Barnett, Tegan and Sarah, just to name a few. Long before We Are Moving the Needle ever existed, Michael and I would have long, meaningful conversations about the lack of female representation in the recording industry and what to do about it. And they were difficult conversations because there were no, it wasn't like finding an answer that was already there. All of this, there was no map for it. And all of my crazy ideas were kind of unproven. Not kind of, they were completely unproven. And so we went in and did the Fix the Mix report so that we would have some actual data and metrics to measure our results against. And that kind of brings me to this story about Michael, which is that he used to have a list in his desk. I always like to think of it in his pocket, but it was in his desk, I think. And he would call me frequently, and we would talk about why that list was so short. On that list were producers and engineers and mixers and even women who could support tours. And his artists were asking for women to support them in those ways, in those roles. And he also really wanted to hire them. Michael, also a father of girl children, i.e. daughters. And I challenge everybody who has boy children, i.e. sons, to think about the fact that you have a mother, you have a sister, you have an aunt. You know what women are too. It's not only special to have daughters, but it does help. But anyway, having those daughters, I think, made it really obvious for him that this was important. And that's my own take on it. He was incredible, actually, and he really wanted to talk about how he could bring in other male allies to support this work in a tangible way. And time again, he made the choice to put his money where his mouth is and stand up for a more inclusive industry. He's a true change maker. For all that he's done to uplift women behind the board and lead by doing, I am so honored to present Michael Goldie Goldstone with the Transformer Award.
This is fantastic. Thank you, Emily, and We Are Moving the Needle for the recognition in this Transformer Award. You know, Emily is very humble, so here's a little bit of context that you might not hear from somebody else. Early on, Emily had the hustle for everything and was surrounded, by cynicism and gender bias and all the things that we know exist in the world. And even though she was writing and producing and mastering the finest records in the land and channeling all that talent into a wildly successful career, and too much Grammy love to count. So at Masterdisc, she became a master at mastering. Ask her to make it sound like a sausage pizza, and she'd know exactly what to do. When she boldly started the Lodge in 1997, she continued to master hundreds of albums that mattered. It's pretty neat as my bud Jeff Sosnow would say in the back of the room, he's there, for a New York mastering engineer to be spinning knobs for Lou Reed and David Bowie in New York City. You know, we're a little New York centric here, so it's really cool. So when I first learned about We Are Moving the Needle and that I can contribute, I was all in and felt privileged to be part of it. It really was. It's an incredible honor. You know, and part of the reason that I think we're all here is for, you know, for so many people who've done work before we all got here, like, you know, Women in Music and She Is the Music and Amplify Her and Jennifer's Justice Department advocating for this thing called equal pay. Imagine that. And those efforts really paved the way for me in moving the needle. So, looking back, I grew up at a major label, and a number of them when diversity and equity, and inclusion weren't really even in the dialogue. I was, you know, saddened by those inequities. And at Sire, you know, I saw under Gina Spector, who reminded me what musical genius and creative control could look like. And then I was fortunate to be able to sign Tegan and Sarah after years of tackling every anti-gay bias, becoming pop icons and advocates for everything important. It's really cool. They also offered an inspiration and a conscience when I acted on what, you know, independent music could be. They really those artists really sat me down and articulated the disparity and the inequity and, you know, encouraging me to go start something different. So when I started Mom+Pop, 2008, and later when Thaddeus Rudd became my partner, we knew we had to approach things differently, musically, culturally, and as a label, we always would strive for diversity in the music that we released and the people who came to work here. So our roster, which I have to shout out or I'll feel guilty, you know, has a number of really independent-minded creatives and artists, and we've been, as a label, we've been really fortunate to work with people like Courtney Barnett and Orion Sun and Maya Hawke and Beach Bunny and Ash and Magdalena Bay and so many talented people. So, you know, in preparing for tonight, this was somewhat unexpected for me. I realized that, we started 15, 16 years ago, and 7 of those 10 hires, as you alluded to, have been women or non-binary. So I really appreciate, you know, the support here in the moment to kind of recognize it's really thoughtful. You know, I think the reason that we got there is because we hired people that were collaborative, that cared about music, that cared about that artist experience, and of course we're the most qualified, and that's what we ended up with. And we're so fortunate that the team that we do have, some incredible people. And you know, as you were alluding to in terms of that short list in the desk, you know, we constantly try to make that list longer. You know, and we've been fortunate, you know, to work with people like, you know, Stella, you know, Mozgawa and Susie Shin, who I know is here, and Jen, who's at our table, and thank you, Jen. It was super fun to work with you on the record. And Aaron Tonkin and B. Artola and others, and you know, and in addition to the artists that obviously self-produced, but you know, let's be honest. There's still not enough opportunities, clearly, by a long shot, of women that are producing, mixing, engineering, mastering, and it's not even close. And you know, we need to figure out a way to complement that transcendent artistry that's going on right now, because there's unparalleled heights, you know, that are happening, and even more reason why the representation really should be better. You know, somebody like Taylor climbing unparalleled heights, and boy genius, inspiring a new generation of challenging norms as something as basic as the gender makeup of a rock band. I mean, come on. This paradigm shift includes, you know, artists like Ethel Cain and SZA and Lana Del Rey, and there's so many talented, incredible women making important and authentic music. But we still have to be reminded by the amplifying the voices and talents of women and non-binary execs. And it's not the human thing to do. It unequivocally puts better art into the world and makes a better world for all of us. So I challenge my contemporaries in A&R, starting with Sosnow. It's on us to be more mindful and scrappy and proactive in hiring women creatives in 2024. And that if you don't hire a woman you've never worked with, you're part of the problem and lessening your chances of great art. Our collective efforts will better the process, and we will live in a better world. I look forward to a music future that's more fair and balanced. Thank you a million, Emily, and we are moving the needle, and my lovely wife, Rochelle, who's here for me.